Eligible applicants are nonprofit corporations as defined in the state statute, which is in 13-B MRSA section 102.9, as well as units of state, county, and local government. But basically, nonprofit organizations and corporations in Maine are eligible for this program. The grant program supports preservation and restoration projects that meet the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. If you're not familiar with the standards, I would encourage you, if you're thinking about this program, to acquaint yourself with those. You can search for the standards. They're issued by the Secretary of the Interior. They are available in a link through our site or through the National Park Service. The Commission has an interest in seeing that the bond funds support worthy projects in all areas of the state. We really want to get this money out to every corner of the state, to worthy projects that can support and benefit every Maine community if we can. It is anticipated that there will be 3 rounds of awards, one in January of 2026, one in July or October of 2026, and one in the spring or summer of 2027. Those latter 2 rounds are still kind of in flux as to when they will occur, but we're pretty sure that the first one will be in January of 2026. So in what we're calling round 1, minimum awards will be generally $25,000, and maximum awards will generally be $250,000. Although this maximum amount may be revised upward. The program requires a 25% matching share, which must be provided, and this is very important, and this is what's in the law, must be provided by private or nonprofit sources. No federal, state, county, or local governmental funds can be used for the matching share. So in a $100,000 project, an applicant might receive a $75,000 grant with $25,000 provided by the subgrantee. Funds are provided on a reimbursement basis. Thus, the subgrantee must incur allowable costs up front and can then seek reimbursement for 75% of those costs. Requests for reimbursement can be made at any time during the period of the contract. I'm going to just get into the weeds a little bit here, just so you get some sense of, if you haven't applied for funds through our office before, this is generally how things work. Successful applicants will be required to execute a stewardship or preservation agreement with the Commission. These agreements require that the owner receive prior approval from the Commission for any subsequent changes to the property during the term of the agreement. So these agreements have terms ranging from 5 years to 20 years. So for larger awards, tend to have longer terms in their agreements. We plan to release the grant manual and application for round 1 this coming September, and applications will be due in early December. Drawings and specifications prepared by licensed Maine architects and engineers who have experience with historic buildings and have experience in applying the Secretary standards will be required for most projects. The drawings and specifications will be reviewed and must be approved by Commission staff to ensure consistency with the standards. There will be some exceptions, so we're still working on those, but there will be some in-kind replacement activities and some other things that we feel will not require drawings and specifications, and that will be spelled out in the grants manual. The funds cannot be used for costs already incurred. Okay, so on to some of the things that are eligible projects. Grant funds are available for what we call shovel-ready construction projects only, not for planning, research, or assessment projects, or for producing drawings and specifications or bid documents. So if you need a building condition assessment, these funds will not pay for that. They will not pay for you to hire a licensed architect or engineer to prepare the drawings and specifications that you need for the application and to receive a grant. And that the reason for all of this is that these are considered by the state controller's office to be capital funds rather than non-capital funds. So there's a limitation on what capital funds can be used for. Eligible projects may include, but are not limited to, structural repairs to foundations, framing, masonry, roofs, preservation or restoration of a building's envelope, including masonry repointing, in-kind repair or replacement of sheathing, cladding and trim materials, roofing, historic window restoration, lead paint or other hazardous abatement. Painting can be included as part of a larger preservation treatment project. So that means that if your building just needs cyclical painting, routine maintenance, it's not going to qualify for the project. But if it's part of a larger repair that includes painting, it would be allowable. Mechanical system upgrades are allowable to protect the historic building. So this would be new wiring, heating systems, plumbing, fire or intrusion alarms. Life safety upgrades to meet international existing building codes would be allowable. Upgrades to improve Americans with Disability Act access are allowable, but not new elevator additions. So new additions in general are not allowable. And site work related to improving building perimeter drainage or repair of damage to grounds due to construction would be allowable. So ineligible projects may include, but are not limited to, I mentioned new construction, with the exception of measures essential to the protection of a building or the accurate reconstruction of lost elements as part of an approved restoration plan. And site work unrelated to improving building perimeter drainage is unallowable. So parking or landscaping that's not related to improving perimeter drainage is an unallowable cost. Projects that involve solely routine, and I mentioned this a little bit, or cyclical minor maintenance, such as painting window sash, brush clearance at a site, etc., are not eligible. These may be performed as part of the larger project, but would not be the primary grant funded activity. Work performed prior to a commission approval of project drawings and specifications would not be allowable. Interpretive expenses such as exhibits are not allowable. Although the cost of constructing and installing and maintaining a sign that indicates where the funding support comes from is an allowable cost. Work on non-historic spaces is ineligible, and moving historic buildings is ineligible. I've just thrown a lot of information at you all. And I'm now kind of happy to try to answer any questions you have. I will note that check the commission's website for updates, and the program materials will be there when they're available. And that website is www.maine.gov/MHPC. So with that, Tara, I'm open to questions.
Yeah. So there were a couple of questions in the chat that have been answered, but it would be great to get the stamp of approval from you that this is correct. So one question is a building that is part of a National Register district but not individually listed eligible? And I responded that the building just has to be contributing to the district. Is that correct?
That's correct, right. If a building is a contributing resource in a listed historic district, it's considered listed in the National Register.
And what were the anticipated minimum and maximum awards? And we had a response that it's between 25,000 and 250,000. Is that correct?
Right, with the possibility that the maximum in round one may be increased.
So that's what we had in the chat. I welcome folks to politely raise their hand, either using the Zoom feature or your own hand, but you're going to have to wave kind of vigorously to make sure that we see it. So I see T.H. Butler Smith. Please go ahead.
Smythe. Yes, Butler Smythe. Out of curiosity, so I'm redoing a building that was built in 1833. It was the first secondary school in Hancock County. I don't think we're going to be able to qualify for it because we will probably have spent all the money we have by the time the grant process opens for us or is eligible. So that would make getting a grant impossible. We will have already spent over $600,000 already, not enough to finish the project, and we won't have any money left. We're going to do fundraising. So I assume that would make us ineligible for matching because we've already spent our money. The other question is the interior. If our intent is not to rebuild the interior to what it was originally, because it didn't have insulation, we don't even know what the interior really looked like, would that make us also ineligible?
Well, I think the first question here is the building listed in the National Register of Historic Places?
It's part of a district, but not individually.
It's part of a district, okay.
Yeah.
So I think in that case, first of all, let's stick there. I think what we would have to look at in that case is what's the nature of the space now and what is your plan for it? Knowing that it may have been altered, the building contributes to the historic district, so I think we'd have to assess both the existing conditions and your plans for it. So we'd have to see. As far as, yes, we couldn't reimburse you for costs you've already incurred and work you've done. But if there's a future phase of work, we expect to have 3 rounds of funding. So maybe that gives you an opportunity to pull together a project for a future round and to raise the match for that.
I don't know what you want me. Yeah, okay.
So we've got a few questions continuing on. Can you explain the match requirements again? That's a 25% match, right? But cannot be a government.
Right. And this is very important. So the funding is, so let's say you have $100,000 project.
Ken, it's like you'll hear 3 words and then it goes.
You might apply for $75,000 from the grant funds or from the bond funds, and you would be expected to furnish the $25,000 as the match. But those funds cannot come from other governmental sources. So they can't come from a municipal government, or they can't come from another state or federal grant. It has to be a private or nonprofit source. So you could receive, if you got a grant from a private foundation, that would be allowable, or you raised funds locally for the match, that would be fine. Match can also be provided to some extent in kind services or materials, but overhead costs and indirect costs are not allowable in the grant program. So if you have volunteers who are, volunteer contractors, or who are providing either labor, or you have a company providing materials, those can be counted toward match.
Thanks, Kirk. Question is, would a church be an eligible entity? And the follow-up is, she's thinking specifically of Christ Church in Gardner, whose steeple and bell tower fixing project is more expensive than they had hoped.
Yes, a church is an eligible applicant, provided that it is a place that serves the community. It's not simply a place of worship. Most churches, I think, fill that role in Maine. The project in Gardner at Christ Church is something that the commission has been closely involved in reviewing the drawings and specifications, and the project, as we've seen it so far, meets the Secretary of the Interior standards. The applicant, the owner, this Christ Church diocese, could apply for funds for work that has not already been done. In that case, the real question with Christ Church is the matching share non-federal? Because I know that the Christ Church was awarded a large congressionally directed spending grant, although I don't know that came through. It may have been rescinded. But that would be the key for that project, and any like it.
Will grants try to cover all counties in their dissemination of funds? So I guess that's a question about geographic distribution. Is there any kind of parameters around scoring for, being in different parts of the state?
There's no specific points awarded to one county or one area of the state over another, but geographic distribution of the grants will be taken into consideration. So again, it's to my point of trying to distribute this funding throughout the state to the best that we can, and that local communities are able to raise the funds to match the grant.
And okay, so here's a question from Michael Graham. Could we revisit eligible building envelopes versus ineligible cyclical regular maintenance? I don't know if I follow the question, Michael. Yeah, so I don't know if you wanna jump in and ask your question live.
Hi there, everybody. Hi, Kirk. So I noticed that you said that projects could include work on building envelopes, but you said then like that included roofs, I think, if I kept up with my note taking. But roofs would not be a regular cyclical thing. They would be an eligible type of.
Right. I think roofs tend to have a longer lifespan, 20 years, which falls into this category of capital costs, Michael, whereas painting, is sometimes a more regular activity and has a shorter interval of time and is considered more of a maintenance activity than a capital cost like a roof replacement.
Fantastic. And along that same vein, would that include repair to claps window glazing, window restoration as eligible or ineligible?
I think it probably depends upon the scope of the work. If it's 2 or 3 windows here or there and touch-up painting, but if you're talking about a building that hasn't been addressed for a very long time, and you've got significant deterioration of windows, if it's simply just reglazing a window and painting, it may be considered more of a cyclical maintenance activity than a capital cost. That
Okay, so maybe
you may have to look at these on a case-by-case basis. It's difficult establishing these exact parameters for all types of buildings, because there are some types of windows, for example, that like stained glass windows, for instance, that the repair of those is more of a capital cost because you don't do it on a cyclical basis.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Great, thanks, Michael. So we've got another specific question. We have to replace a portion of the shingles and repaint the whole building. What percentage of shingles would need replacement on a building for it to be eligible to be repaired and repainted as part of the grant request? Also happy to talk offline. So if there's a quick answer to that, Kirk, go for it.
Yeah, I don't know that. Probably need to know more about the scope of the replacement projects, the roofing project, and why it's only a portion of it and not all of it. But I'm happy to talk offline about that.
Kirk, so is it okay if we put your email in the chat, or should folks be directed to Michael? Okay.
Yes, please do. Yeah.
Okay. Elsie, would you mind putting Kirk's email in the chat for me?
Yep.
Thank you. So another question is, who is the approving authority for these grant requests?
So there will be a grant review committee that reviews all the applications and will create a slate of recommended awards, and those awards will go before the Maine Historic Preservation Commission, which is the publicly appointed body, and they meet quarterly. So the schedule for round 1 is based on the commission having a slate to approve at the January quarterly meeting, which is the 4th Friday of January next year.
Do you anticipate that the second and third rounds will have similar funding ranges? And also, will an organization be able to apply to multiple rounds? Or if we receive a grant in round 1, would we not apply to round 2 or 3?
I think at the outset, we were considering having a greater amount of funding available in round 2, with the thought being that once people understand that they have to get drawings and specifications prepared for their project, they might need a little time to do that before applying for funding. So we hope that there is a certain group of projects that are ready to go that we can fund in the first round, that in the second round would be probably a larger part of the funding available for these projects that are now ready to go. And then the third round, a smaller amount to catch those last projects that didn't go in the first 2. Those later 2 rounds are still subject to some tweaking, and it will be based, I think, in part on what we receive in the first round, or maybe learn about where people are in their planning process. And I would certainly think that an applicant could apply in multiple rounds for different phases of work. Some of these projects are certainly going to be phased over 2, 3, 4 phases over time. So we recognize that, and we want to support these projects as best we can.
Great. Is there a score sheet that will be used to evaluate applications? And if so, is that a public document?
We will have a score sheet prepared. We haven't done that yet, and we will make that available.
That's great. In the documentation of funds, is a contingency amount or percentage allowed if it can be met by the matching funds?
Contingency is not allowed.
We've got a request to explain the match requirements again.
Okay, so it's a 75-25 match. So in the example of a $100,000 project, you would apply for $75,000, and you would be expected to raise or provide the match of $25,000. And those have to be private or nonprofit sources of funding. It cannot be federal, state, or local governmental sources for the match.
Terrific. If one is not on the National Register or nominated by MHPC, does one have time to get on the list before round 1? Or does one have to be in before round 1? I guess is a question too. Like, can you talk a little bit about eligibility, determinations of eligibility?
Sure. It's probably if your property is not already listed in the register, either individually or as a contributing building in a listed historic district, it's probably too late for round 1. But what I would encourage you to do is to contact us right away and have you fill out a National Register eligibility assessment form, that get that into us. If it's eligible, we will do our best to get it in the queue for the preparation of a nomination and presentation to our review board at one of the quarterly meetings. So, there's a little time down the road to do that, but I don't think so for the first round.
Great. What technical assistance is Maine Preservation planning to offer to those of us making grant applications, and is there a staff member we could turn to? So just to be clear, because our names are so similar, we'll talk about both of our organizations. So Kirk, do you want to start with who people should contact at MHPC? Is that you or is that Mike Johnson?
Well, for now, it's me. We do hope to bring on someone in a part-time role to help us administer this program. And that person would be the contact in the future. But for now, we can't do that until September at the earliest. But we hope to have that person on board. And in the meantime, direct your questions to me. And I may rely on other staff to help me answer that. Okay,
great. And then for Maine Preservation, for our organization, you can help, you can reach out to either Elsie Perot, who's our field services specialist, who is here on the call. Her email is elsie@mainepreservation.org. And Brad Miller would typically also be available to help out, but he is out on parental leave for the next several weeks. So for now, it's Elsie, but intermittently, you might also reach out to Brad, and that's brad@mainepreservation.org. And I think, we work closely with MHPC, but they are the entity that is administering the grant. But we do have some experience and knowledge in applying, also in determinations of eligibility. And so we'll do our best to try to interpret some of this stuff to make it a little bit easier for you all with your applications. So another question, could a site submit a request for repairs on multiple eligible buildings at the site? So multiple properties on a single site.
If they're listed in the register, either individually or as contributing buildings in a historic district, yes. And that they serve the function of a historic community building. That's the other aspect of all this, is that they do serve that purpose.
We've also got a question about reimbursement. How long does it take to get reimbursed? And does that mean the nonprofit needs to have the entire amount to pay the contractor?
So the reimbursement doesn't take long. We get, will be required to submit documentation of costs incurred and payments made. And we will ensure that everything is in order and send the bill to our payment officer. And I don't think it takes very long to do it. And you can submit reimbursement requests at any time throughout the project. So you don't have to have the full amount upfront, pay the contractor the full amount, and then seek reimbursement. You can do it during the project. So if you start a project and after month one, the contractor sends you an invoice for the work done, and that's documented, you send that to us. Let's say the invoice is for $10,000. We will reimburse you for $7,500 or 75% of that $10,000 charge. And the $2,500 being the match that you're required to provide.
Thank you. I wanted to just go backwards a little bit in terms of offering technical assistance. A good way to get the benefit of Maine preservation staff is to attend one of our Monday meetup sessions. They're typically the first Monday of every month at noon, and they are organized by building stewards. So we have the next one is nonprofits and fraternal organizations. We have one for local governments, and we have one for faith communities. So you could show up at that particular location to talk with Elsie and or Brad about your application and other things that you might need. So I'm putting that in the chat. And we have another question. What is the anticipated period of activity for the first round?
Yes, we expect that with approvals of grant awards at the end of January, that in February and March contracts would be issued, and the work period would be through the end of September of 2027. So over a year and a half for the project to be carried out. Hopefully catching 2 building seasons, basically. We hope that's enough. We do have some constraints here because of the way in which bond funds are issued and the time frame in which they have to be expended. So we're trying to work, within those constraints to make sure that the money gets out and that the money gets spent within those time frames. That's why we have these proposed grant rounds that are, roughly 6 or so months apart.
Well, I don't see any more questions in the chat. Somebody's asking me, will the Q&As be sent to participants via email? We can do that. We can download them and send them to you all. Then we have another, how do we access this recording and chat? So we will be posting the recording on our YouTube, and that will go out via our email list, and we will, I guess, include the chat in that too. But you'll, as participants, you'll get it for sure. So thank you for the logistical questions. Follow up, Kirk, I didn't catch the anticipated earliest start date for project activities.
Probably, well, we hope to get contracts executed in February or March of next year. So work can start as soon as those contracts are executed.
All right, any last questions? All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thank you so much to Kirk for sharing all of this important information for this tremendous opportunity that Maine voters have provided us. Thank you for your advocacy in getting this passed, and looking forward to talking with you about all of your projects, helping you get through the pipeline and getting funded the best that we can. So see you another time. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Get your projects in mind. Let's get this money spent. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.